Tuesday, the 11th of August, Operation Pedestal went live, and the convoy sailed, not into battle, but into a beautiful Mediterranean summer. For a while, a holiday mood settled. Seemingly far away from wartime Europe. Fawcett was a young naval officer and gunnery specialist on a brand new destroyer, HMS Bramham. Like many of his colleagues, he even dared to hope that the threat from the enemy had been overestimated.
We started off in beautiful sunny weather, calm seas, and we had been going for 2 days and thought, this is simply marvelous. Nothing happening at all. We're going to have the most lovely cruise there and cruise back.
But the war was anything but far away. As Pedestal's men admired the weather, fathoms below, a deadly enemy was preparing. Undetected as it glided through the chilly depths, a lone submarine carefully stalked the convoy. Gradually closing in, it maneuvered with meticulous precision. And just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it struck.
4 thumps. And we saw plumes of spray come up around the Eagle.
Pedestal was barely underway, and the Eagle, the pride of the fleet and the convoy's strongest protector, had been hit.
It was listing over, and you could see in the distance all the airplanes and that sliding off into the water.
She sank incredibly quickly.
Four torpedoes had torn into the great carrier that had done so much damage to the Axis. 260 men were dead, and 12 aircraft lost.
You're well aware that there are many men in that ship who are in fact trapped, with no way of getting out and no way of surviving.
It was frightening. It was a foretaste of what was likely to happen. And we were all shaken out of any feeling of this is going to be a holiday cruise.
Now the pride of the fleet was destroyed, and the battle was on. The Eagle may have been lost, but the Ohio and her 13 sister ships forged on into the night in tight formation, so far untouched. Fanned around them in front, beside, and behind, naval vessels bristling with armaments, sweeping the sea for mines and laying depth charges to take out submarines. As dawn broke on the 12th of August, the men of the convoy scanned the waters ceaselessly for threats and any chance they might seize to avenge the Eagle. They wouldn't have to wait long, but their next contact would not come from below, but from the skies above. Now the artillerymen of the ships braced themselves. HMS Bramham was a young gunner, Reginald Coker. Just 22 years old, he had seen HMS Hood sunk by the Germans the year before and was keen to show the Luftwaffe what a British convoy could do.
The barrage that was put up over the fleet, the RAF people used to refer to it as the flak was such you could almost walk on it with the bursting shells and that sort of thing. There was no damage done to any of the ships, and the attack was quite easily beaten off. That was the first attack, of course.
By mid-morning, Pedestal had shown its muscle. 120 German and Italian planes had been sent packing with ease. Pride surged through the formations, as well as cautious confidence. But within hours, a new threat emerged. An Italian submarine had penetrated the convoy's defenses unnoticed. Quietly squaring up to two of the most precious cruisers in the naval escort. HMS Cairo and HMS Nigeria had been especially fitted out with long-range radar and high-powered communications to help spot and shut down Axis air attacks early. Now, a single volley of torpedoes caused the most damage by any submarine in the entire operation. First and second homed in on the cruisers and hit them. Both were instantly disabled. But there was more. The third and fourth torpedoes continued into the convoy's ranks, seeking the ultimate prize. And this time, the SS Ohio would not be spared. A hole had been punched into the side of the Ohio. Flames ripped past tanks loaded with kerosene on the lower decks and burst into the open air. The ship was struggling with her first full assault, barely 24 hours into the mission. It should have been a death blow, but the Ohio's master, Dudley Mason, now showed how cool he could be under fire. Resisting the temptation to abandon ship, he waited for inrushing seawater to quell the flames, and then ordered a firefighting party to finish the job. But the assault nailed one illusion squarely on the head, that the Ohio was so well protected that it had nothing to fear.
When the flames go higher than the top of the mast, it's a bit worrying. The engines had stopped, everything had stopped. And then after it all quietened down and we got the fire out, we got the engine started again. But we'd had no compass. The gyro compass was thrown off balance.
The fires may have been tamed, but the Ohio's steering was wrecked, and the great ship skewed off course into the path of her neighbors, narrowly avoiding a collision. Now the convoy was thrown into disarray, and it struggled to maintain discipline and direction, so crucial for keeping momentum and a tight defense. As if sensing the opportunity, the Axis forces now seized their chance. Italian and German bombers swept in. The infamous Stuka dive bombers made the most of the disorganized fleet and took out 3 merchant ships with ease. The Empire Hope and the Clan Grand Ferguson was sunk outright, while the Brisbane Star was disabled. As the men of Operation Pedestal fought to keep control and order, they now entered their third night, facing the most dangerous part of the route. The heavily defended straits between Sicily and Tunisia, a bottleneck called the Sicilian Narrows, would test Mason and his men to the limit.
It was during the night that the really terrifying intensity of attack took place. The Axis had concentrated their submarines, their E-boats, and bombers to really deal with our fleet. And the amount of damage they inflicted was terrifying.
As the Axis pincer tightened its grip, the Italians launched their most effective weapon yet: torpedo-firing E-boats. Quick, small, and stealthy, they attacked Pedestal in hit-and-run operations throughout the night, aiming at ships already ablaze to send them down. Through the night, torpedoes slammed into 4 more merchant vessels. Some sank instantly, others burned out to uselessness. Pedestal was being ground down to a remnant. And by dawn, the torpedoes had done their worst. The convoy had been reduced to a fraction of its original size.
It was a really dreadful moment. That great fleet of convoy and escorts was so drastically reduced the next morning. Out of all the enormous fleet we had before, there were 4 merchant ships, a handful of destroyers, and we just had this tiny remnant of the convoy steering rather erratically by that time towards Malta, which was still miles away.